Right, I'm the artist taxi driver. I'm back here with Captain Simon Mann, and I'm going to be asking him some questions about his life and his experiences. So you've had actually quite an extraordinary life. What happened? What was your first experience of battle? Was it in the Gulf War or?
No, we had some interesting moments in Northern Ireland.
Yeah,
quite a few. Yeah.
Was that scary?
Yeah, of course it's scary. Yeah.
So what did you do in the Gulf War? What happened there when you went there?
I was a staff officer.
Okay.
I mean, I rejoined. I'd been out.
Yeah.
And I came back in, and the general, I knew the general because I'd served in the SAS with him.
Yeah.
And I rejoined, and I joined his staff.
So what happened with Mark Thatcher and Equatorial Guinea? Was it called the Wonga coup? No, the Wonga.
Well, they called it the Wonga coup,
Wonga coup.
But it got that name after I'd been put into prison.
Okay. So what actual? Can you just explain a little bit about what happened?
Well, yeah. I mean, very briefly. I mean, I was asked to lead a attempted coup d'état against the regime of President Obiang, who is still the president of Equatorial Guinea, who we thought at the time was an out-and-out tyrant. And I said, yeah, I'd do it.
Who asked you to do that?
A number of people.
Peter Mandelson, was he one of them?
I have no idea. I don't think so.
You're not allowed to say, are you?
No. Because actually, here I can say, because I never heard his name mentioned, ever.
You never heard
in
Peter
the
Mandelson? Okay.
In the run-up.
But was the Labour Party in control at that time? Was they in power?
Yes.
They was?
They were, yeah.
So it wasn't Tony Blair?
No, I mean, there was no UK political involvement. I mean,
somebody must have asked you, hey, Simon, we need you to go out and...
Yeah, but it was private. That was done privately.
What, in a coded message?
No, in a Chelsea house. I'm not going to tell you whose.
Okay. Oh, Margaret Thatcher?
No, that's not Chelsea.
Okay,
that's
she was probably living in Dulwich at that time. But I mean, so how I heard it was you got a plane, a load of ordnance, which is guns and different things,
and ammunition,
and ammunitions, and you've got your squadron, your men, and you were headed. What was the plan?
Oh well, the plan was that we were going to fly from Zimbabwe with the men and the guns and ammunition, and land at Malibu International, by which time the president would have been arrested, and very shortly after I would have landed at the airport there, the guy who was going to become the sort of caretaker president would have landed.
Yeah.
And I was really just there to be his bodyguard, actually. And I was expecting to get out of the aeroplane wearing a suit and tie.
But, I mean, do you think that's okay to do things like that?
Well, I mean, in this case, we thought it was okay because this was an out-and-out tyranny. An out-and-out tyranny. I mean, this was the kind of setup where, you know...
Is it still like that there now, or...?
They're working hard to get it better.
Okay. So then you was arrested where, in Zimbabwe?
I was arrested in Zimbabwe trying to buy the weapons.
Okay.
We never actually got our hands on them.
Okay. And then you was in prison there?
I was in prison in Zimbabwe for 4 years, and then I was sort of kidnapped out of Zimbabwe and smuggled to Equatorial Guinea, where I spent another 18 months.
And you was given a presidential pardon?
I was, yeah, thank goodness.
And I noted that there was a lot of Conservative MPs wanted to get you out, but no one from Labour.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I read.
Oh, what was wrong with Labour then?
I don't know. Maybe they were covering their tracks.
Maybe they were, or maybe the Conservative ones were all the people I'd been to school with.
So you were in the SAS.
I was, yes.
I mean, mostly people are not allowed to talk about their time on the SAS, or they do it anonymously, or
whatever, yeah. Or they write a book.
What was it like being in the? What was it like being in the SAS?
It was hard work. It was really hard work, but it was an amazing thing to get into because, you know, the chances of getting into it are pretty slim.
Yeah.
And so it was a terrific sort of mountain to climb, if you see what I mean.
So you've been described as a mercenary then, because that's a pretty incredible job description.
Yeah, well, I mean, a mercenary, you can be a mercenary doctor, you can be a mercenary lawyer. I mean, in that context, it means somebody who's doing the job more for the money than they are for the job. But obviously there is a pejorative sense of mercenary. And, I mean, I have been a mercenary by many people's reckoning, sure.
So basically a mercenary is someone who gets paid rather than someone who does it for some... under some auspices of liberation or freedom.
I mean, this is a really tricky debate, actually, because on that basis, any professional soldier is a mercenary.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? I mean, the guys who go and join
a lot of people say that they are.
They do.
So in Bougainville...
A houseman, for one.
So Bougainville is a very... Just a quick... Bougainville is a very small island, very close to Papua New Guinea. You also got West Papua and what's happening with the people there. Was you in West Papua?
No, I never went on that job.
Yeah, because I was speaking with Benny Wender, who's like the leader of the independence for West Papua, and the world's largest gold mine is there, the Grasberg. But you was in Bougainville.
I wasn't. I mean, I was actually running a company we had called Diamond Works out of Joburg.
Okay.
And I'd been taken off I was taken off the Papua New Guinea job.
Okay.
Actually, I was complaining bitterly that I'd been taken off it, and Tim Spicer.
Yeah, who was your he's not co-defendant, your co-worker.
Well, he's a mate of mine. We met in the Scots Guards in 1971.
Who had Sandline, which was like
and I was involved with Sandline.
Security.
I mean, Tim came to work.
But Rio Tinto, they've been charged, or they have had accusations, or been charged with through Australia for genocide in Bougainville.
Well, I don't know about that. But the job that Sandline was hired to do was legitimate. It was contracted. It was above the table, and it was with a freely and fairly elected government. I mean, it was a sovereign deal.
Yeah,
I
mean,
you were in the wall, hole in the corner.
So I was just before I met you, I was listening to something that someone sent me, which was a guy called Ben Griffin, and he was talking about to fight for Queen and country, and what he was doing his speech at Oxford, and he was saying that that this portrayal of the soldier as hero and about supporting the support for the soldiers through that is that the truth is that the first casualty of war is that war is built on the lie of violence can lead to peace.
Violence can lead to peace. Okay, but then how do you answer when the violence has been kicked off, directed at you?
But see, this is the whole thing, isn't it? If you want to defend, you defend your shores. The Taliban aren't going to come here. The Taliban have never, not one Taliban has ever set foot on here. Yet we go to somewhere like Afghanistan, supposedly building, nation building, and we didn't even build a hospital there.
No, I mean, if you take the view that a certain war is not just and not right, that doesn't necessarily mean that all others are not just and not right there.
Well, Harry Patch, the last soldier alive from World War One, he said it's legalised mass murder.
Yeah,
he was the last soldier.
It really must have been terrible. The First World War must have been.
But don't you see that as all wars?
Well, not really, because I mean, my dad ended up a major in the Scots Guards, and he had an MC and a DSO. But I know that when he was at Cambridge in the 30s, he was a pacifist. And I asked him once, I said, how come a pacifist ends up with an MC and a DSO? And he said, well, it was very simple, actually. We were listening to Hitler one night, sitting in my rooms in Cambridge, and we just knew we were going to have to fight.
But the thing about like these modern day wars, these wars for oil, these wars for minerals and for other people's resources, these are wrong wars. These are not good. These are not for our defence.
I don't think that can really be said of Afghanistan, because I don't think there's any wonderful oil field or. I mean, what are we meant to be fighting there for?
2 months ago, in number 10 Downing Street, David Cameron held a soiree, a do, for looking for mining and minerals in Afghanistan.
Well, I'm sure they're looking for them.
Yeah, but they have them. They already have the resources.
Well, that's good, isn't it?
I don't know. I think that war is about business. I think that banks, I think that energy companies and arms dealers are looking to look for the next war, to look for the next big one. JP Morgan and the big banks who own BP, they said to Tony Blair, go to Iraq is the big one.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually involved a little bit, sort of by several removes in the run-up to the Iraq invasion. And I ask quite often, you know, well, what's this really all about? What's really going on here? And in fact, the guys I was dealing with were either American neocons, Richard Pearl, for example, or UK people who are very close to them, David Hart, who's dead now. And when I really pushed and tried to, because there were all sorts of different arguments going on, you know, we need a different strategic base, Saddam's involved with Al-Qaeda, blah, 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 blah. But it didn't really add up. And the harder I pushed, and then eventually, look, Simon, it's like this. Afghanistan, following September the 11th, Afghanistan is not enough. We're going to take out somewhere else. You know, that was as close.
But that had nothing to do with September the 11th, did it, Iraq?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That was their sentiment.
I mean, what hope?
It wasn't like saying, "Oh, we've got to get the oil."
Yeah, what about the children? What about like our futures? If it's going to be like a perpetual war, perpetual like fighting for resources, killing people, banking.
Do you think it's going to be like? I mean, I
it's
don't
perpetual.
think.
Look back in the history of time; it's never changed, not even once, not for a second.
Well, but is that really true?
Yeah, well, tell me when there wasn't a war.
What you mean, worldwide?
Anywhere, at any
or
point.
Us.
We've been.
Yeah,
Tell me the last time Britain wasn't involved in a war.
Yeah, no, you're right there. You're right. We've been involved in a lot.
What's your philosophy of life?
My philosophy of life? I always try and do things, you know, pretty much, hopefully, right. You know, I do think about what I do, so I'm reasonably moral in that sense, and I believe in enjoying it.
I'm the artist taxi driver. This, my friends, is Captain Simon Mann.